So today I'd like to share with you my story. I was in a car accident when I was 23 years old, and it was actually right across the street from my house, right at the corner, just pulling out. And I was hit from the side, so I had a lot of compression on the sides of my spine, and I wound up having bulging and herniated discs in every one of my thoracic vertebrae. And I was in constant pain after that. I treated for about a year, 2 years, something like that, with a doctor. The only thing they could do for me, which is pretty common with herniations as far as I know, is to give me pain medication. And that's what they did. And I was on pain medication for about a year, and I became addicted to it. So eventually it wasn't doing it for me anymore. It wasn't deadening anything, the pain, and also satisfying my addiction, which I developed. So I started using harder drugs like OxyContin and buying that illegally. And that was about another year maybe that I was doing that, and it gradually progressed as addiction does, where I couldn't financially keep up with it anymore, and I was started going through withdrawal. Tried to quit on my own a few times. That didn't work for me, and eventually it got to a point where I was in so much pain. I couldn't sleep. It was like days that I went without sleep, and eventually I had enough. I even seriously considered suicide. Seriously considering, meaning I planned it. And the universe was like, you know, you have more stuff to do, right? So the next day, actually, I had an opportunity to go to rehab. And that's what I did. I went to rehab for about, I think it was about a month, the program. And while I was in there, I saw The Secret. They showed movies sometimes. And that when I saw that movie, that was like the first time that I ever really considered that I could choose my thoughts, or that I have any control whatsoever over my mind, to be honest. Before that, I was just a slave to my mind completely, a creature of habit, seeking pleasure all the time, no matter what that was, whether it was through sex or drugs or entertainment or whatever it was. And yeah, that seriously made me think about that possibility and start to really dive into that. This was before I did any yoga. They had a yoga class when I was in rehab, actually, and I was kind of like, averse to it. It seemed like out there kind of stuff. And so after I left rehab, I started looking into a lot of mind stuff, The Secret and this manifesting and all this kind of stuff. I started looking into it. I didn't take it too seriously, I guess, at first. And at this point, when I went into rehab and when I got out, I was still smoking like a pack and a half a day, I think, a pack to 2 packs a day, depending on the day. And I was like 340 pounds, so I was pretty big. And I wanted to lose weight, but I couldn't go to the gym because I was not on pain medication anymore, and my body wasn't very efficiently producing painkillers, natural painkillers, because I've depleted it so much. So that took some time to build back up. And the only thing I could think to do, my mom gave me a book by Rodney Yee called Moving Towards Balance. And that I had that laying around. And to be honest with you, my perception of yoga at that time, I remember very clearly, was like Indian men in diapers that was my picture of it in my head. And then I also, looking at their bodies, I was like, I don't want to be very skinny and emaciated. So that was the way I perceived it. So that's what kind of turned me off to yoga at first. But I didn't have any other options, and I really wanted to lose weight. I really wanted to heal my back. And my only objective at first was to lose weight. And that's what I did. I started looking at the book and just holding postures as long as I could, which wasn't very long at first. I would hold downward dog and be pouring sweat. So I think I did 20-minute sessions at first, just holding postures, mostly holding for all of my practice, actually. And gradually that increased over time. During this process, I realized like I have to do something about my finances. I was like really in debt from all the drug use and maxing out credit cards and cash advances and things like this, and loans and all that. So what I did was I went and got a job at a retail store overnight. So I was stocking overnight. So I was still very insecure, very shy at this point, and very uncomfortable, like in my own skin with myself, with my story, my history, and things like that. So I took a job at night so I could not have to interact with other human beings. And during the time that I was working there overnight, I gradually began to lose weight through practicing the yoga. And after about 1 year, I lost 110 pounds. And this was just through practicing yoga. I lost about another 15. I became a personal trainer after that and got pretty heavily into that for about 6 months. But what wound up happening was I got way too into it, and I wound up overtraining and hurting myself. And it was, I also started feeling very tight because I wasn't doing all the stretching and opening, the breathing and all that. I was still smoking at this point, and I was smoking cigarettes out front of the gym going into before I go into exercise and do my cardio. It was kind of funny. So I gave up on the gym, the working out, came back to yoga, and it felt right immediately. Everything was beneficial immediately. After it healed my back, I had 1 more year, 6 more months of doing yoga after the personal training. Just to be clear, I went to get an MRI of my back again, and I had only 2 bulging discs in the thoracic spine. So everything else healed, and to my knowledge, what I feel now is that everything is healed because I feel wonderful there, no pain. And after this healed, after I saw this, because all I did was felt that I wasn't in pain anymore and that I lost weight. I didn't have any proof of actually what happened. I just didn't think about it because I didn't have pain. And then once I got the MRIs and saw that, and I just wanted to, it was natural. I just wanted to be a teacher. I just wanted to go for a teacher training. So at this point, I still never took a yoga class at all. I only practiced at home. So I had no idea what that entails to teach yoga, and I also had a lot of misconceptions about the postures and the way they're supposed to be done and all this. So I went in 2016 to a studio called Yoga Sphere, and I took my first class before I signed up for the training. I loved it right away, the place and the teachers and everything, so I didn't hesitate. I signed up immediately. And this lineage was like a tantric lineage, and so it was so good for me because it was so much good stuff for stimulating all of the conditioning, a lot of chanting and mantra and singing and even dancing sometimes. So interacting with other human beings, totally out of my comfort zone. I was always introverted. This brought up a lot of stuff, so much stuff for me to look at. The process, I don't want to go into detail and make it too long, but it stimulated a lot of stuff in me so I could look at a lot of these things. It was wonderful, huge growing experience, and so grateful to the teachers in the school and everything forever. And then after that training, I started teaching. It was very slow starting. I was still working at another, a regular, real job. and then I slowly wanted to switch over. And, beautifully, the universe, again, always conspires to help if it's something beautiful and pure. And I started teaching a ton of chair yoga, is what happened. And I was teaching completely full-time, actually, chair yoga. I think I was driving for a ride share, like on the weekends, just a day or two for extra money. But I was full-time all week teaching chair yoga at senior centers and mostly retirement communities. And this was like a huge growth, huge learning period, especially for teaching, because I got to work with so many people with certain ailments and injuries and trying to recover from things. And I learned so much about modifying for people and teaching to who's in front of you, right? Instead of just teaching out, whatever I've prepared, but teaching it as it applies to who's in front of me. I was at Yoga Sphere, and I forget what for exactly, but one of my teachers, she mentioned that she was going to India to visit a school that she helps fund there. And it wasn't even a thought in my mind. It was just like, answer right from my heart. Like, yes, like, I'll go. Does anyone want to go? Like, I'll go right away. Like, I had no hesitation. It's amazing how that happens so many times where you don't have to think about the answer. When you don't have to think about it and it's just a feeling like this is right and like yes, then it's a yes. It's the universe, it's just right. No question about it. And then I did that. I didn't even have the money at the time. I had no money saved. So in however many months that was until we left, I can't remember exactly, but I saved like $5,000. That's what I needed to go. So I saved the $5,000 and I went. And I decided while planning the trip for there, I thought if I'm going to go all the way to India, like I want to take a teacher training there. So that's what I did. I signed up for my 300-hour online at a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful school called World Peace Yoga School. Excuse me. World Peace Yoga School. So I went and stayed there. I spent the first 2 weeks. I had a little energetic phenomena happen when I was there, and I kind of passed out and had to go to the hospital. That's where I got this beautiful little addition to my face. And my teacher was so wonderful. She took care of me, took me to the hospital and everything. And those first 2 weeks, kind of, to be honest with you, were like kind of a blur because I had post-concussion syndrome before, and that kind of came back a little bit, so I was, kind of like in a dream world a little bit. But once that went away, my mind cleared. It was about the end of the 2 weeks. My teacher went home, and I was there by myself. My school was right across the street from the hotel I was staying, so I just wheeled my stuff across the street, went to the hotel. And God, there's no words to express how beautiful, wonderful that school was, the teachers there, everything that I experienced. There's no way for me to try to put it into words, so I won't try. And that was just so much growth there. And that's where I met my wife now, Yasmin. She was there visiting from Australia, and she's originally from Brazil. She was living in Australia at the time. And we met there. It was just like same thing as going to India. So crazy how it works, Same exact thing as going to India. Like I didn't hesitate. Like I'm not the person to talk to people. I'm not like an introvert. I'm an introverted person naturally. So it's not in my nature to just walk up to someone and start a conversation or anything like that. My natural tendency is to just go find a comfortable corner, right, to go sit in. And I feel safe there, I feel comfortable in my space. But what happened was I walked into a little wonderful cafe they have next door to the school, and she was sitting there eating, so I walked over. It wasn't a decision again. It wasn't a decision, I can't explain it, just a feeling. And it just happened, it was natural. But not natural for my character, but it happened naturally. So I walked over and asked her if I could sit down, and we just it felt no adjustment period, right? It felt like this is the most natural thing in the world, like a sister. That's the only way I can explain it. Completely comfortable. No thought of like what she thinks of me or what I think of her or anything like that. It's just comfortable, connected, naturally. And we were just friends, just like brother and sister. Got along so good, so comfortable with each other for the whole time we were in India. And when we left, honestly, I didn't think I'd ever see her again. I wasn't even sure if we would talk again. It was just a wonderful relationship. And then she contacted me. We kept in touch. And we planned on going to a Vipassana retreat down there, which is like a 10-day, 12-day silent retreat. They have centers all over the world. I highly recommend if you're serious about meditation. The first 12 days I did like changed my life. Okay, and so what I did was I suggested to her like, oh, let's go to a Vipassana retreat when we go down there. And the universe again, which is so beautiful, God, the universe again said no. And I booked my tickets already. And I was like, we'll definitely get in one while I'm there. So let's keep applying. We applied to like 3 or 4 of them. I got into everyone I applied to. For some reason, the women fill up really fast, maybe because they're more willing to go to these retreats. And she didn't get in to any of them. And so we said, let's just have a retreat ourselves. Like a 2-week, we'll meditate, relax, you know, be in nature, things like that, do yoga. And that's what we decided to do. And I went down there and we just hit it off, you know, so natural, and it was wonderful. And ever since then, it was just the most natural relationship. We spent time, long distance relationship from Brazil and America. She was living in Brazil at the time. And I would go down for like 2-3 months. Then I would come back, work really hard for like 6 to 9 months, depending. And we did that 3 or 4 times. And then finally on the last time I proposed to her. A beautiful place if you ever get the chance to visit called Iguazu Falls. It's like 275 waterfalls or something like that converge in one place. So beautiful. And yeah, that's history. You know, we came. We put the visa through. She eventually came over here, and 1 month after we moved here, we got married in my house, my parents' house, with my grandmother there and everything. It was a real small ceremony. We planned on going to St. Thomas to have a wedding. Then everything closed with lockdowns and all that. You know about that, right? And we started driving over to California before the first lockdown. We didn't know. We just started driving over, like, let's do a road trip out of it. We were driving to Arizona, and again, the universe was like, keep driving. So we went to San Diego, and that's where we wound up. That's where we are now. We got here 1 week before the first lockdown. And again, universe led us to the most wonderful friends we've met here. And we stayed in their house for the first like year and a half or something. It was a 350 square foot apartment. So we really, our relationship improved so much through that. I highly recommend if you're willing to work on yourself. Try to live in a 350 square foot space with someone for the first time for a year and a half straight, right? So we grew so much, so much. It wasn't easy, of course. Nothing that's worth doing is, right? And yeah, just so much growth, so much wonderful. And then I was driving rideshare for the first 2 years. I was driving full time, to support us through everything, just trying to get through get through everything. And eventually Yasmin started teaching yoga again, and at the beginning of this year I started teaching yoga again there. So that's where we are now. So thanks for spending this time with me. I hope this has helped you see that everything works out, and even if it doesn't look like it at the time. It doesn't matter how bad things look, because everything has a purpose, and really light and dark are one thing. There's not two. There's not good and bad. That's our made-up perception. This is my experience anyway, that these are made-up labels we give to things. I mean, I could say that I suffered and things like that, but look, I mean, that's part of growth, right? All the significant growth in my life has come through suffering, has come through things that we could label as bad, or, but the dark and the light are both things. I like to think of it like like a bowling alley. Those little blockers they put up for people like me and kids, so it keeps the ball in the middle. I think of it as light and dark are these two things. They're keeping us in the center on the path, right? So none of it is good or bad. This is just my perception. You're free, please think however you like. But in my experience, it's all part of the same thing, right? We have to take what we perceive as good and bad as one. Anyway, so I'm grateful for all all of these things no matter what, and you know, acceptance really makes everything a lot easier. You know, it's our resisting it that makes it tough. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer anything. And thank you for listening.